Good evening. My name is Erin Lowe, and I am a student project manager at the Clarke Forum for Contemporary Issues at Dickinson College. On behalf of the Clarke Forum, I am pleased to welcome you to tonight's event, Pursuing the Good Life During a Pandemic: Pause, Connect, Pivot, and Redesign. What does it mean to live the good life? At a time like this, it becomes common to seek meaning in ways many of us were likely unaccustomed to prior to the onset of this pandemic. What are our values? What matters to us? How do we find a path through this difficult time? And as we move forward, what is it that we hope to pursue? As a philosophy major, I have often approached this question within the context of ethics. What does it mean to be good? And how can good action translate to a good life? However, at the moment, it may be difficult to consider ideas of ethics when we are so focused on merely getting through each day. Now more than ever, we see the need for deep human connection. In a way, despite the appearance of isolation, many people are utilizing this time as an opportunity for a creative approach to connecting with others. We've seen examples of street art, signs, and social media being used to remind people that they are not alone. Tonight, we have the honor of welcoming Dana Souders. She is a licensed massage therapist and life coach, and much of her work is centered around promoting authenticity and connectivity among people. Souders encourages her clients to recognize the power of their own voices and their ability to persevere in difficult situations. She will discuss our body's physical responses to our current global situation, as well as what the good life looks like as we move forward. There will be a question and answer session immediately following the program, so please type your questions into the live chat next to this YouTube video at any time. Lynn Wynn, Clarke Forum's student co-supervisor, will be moderating the questions. Thank you so much for attending. We will now begin the presentation.
Thank you so much, Erin. That was a really beautiful opening and very much what I want to dive into tonight. And before I start any content, the first place I'd like to offer is a pause and a self-regulating tool that has been really powerful for me the past many months, and specifically in the past few weeks. I learned this tool from Jason Gaddis. He is a psychologist and life coach, and it's called Nestor. And so I'd like us to walk through it together. And it starts with N, and that is a number. And it's a way in which that we can check in with ourselves. And so 1 would be a feeling of calm and availability, almost like if you're in the bathtub and life feels good and safe and relaxing. And 10 would be pretty high stress, a feeling of tremendous amount of fear. This can also be in some cases, like if someone's having a heart attack, it's a high level of distress. So as we check in with ourselves, just notice what number where you think you're at. And just to give you a little indicator, anything over about a 6, we're getting into those higher ranges of high stress. So I'm going to do this with you. And as I check in with myself right now, I would say that I am about a 3 and maybe 3.5. I feel excited. So E stands for emotion. And so it's a way to just notice if there's any emotions that are coming up right now. It could be sadness, happy, angry, scared, enraged, relaxed. So for me, I feel a combination of happy and a little nervous. This is a new adventure for me. I normally do a lot of one-on-one and small groups. So with the theme of life these days, I think we're all in a lot of navigating the new and unknown. So S is sensation. And so this is a way that we can come into our bodies and just notice what's happening in here. And for me in this moment, and I invite you to check in with yourself right now, I can feel my legs on the chair. I can feel a little bit of quivering in my stomach. And a buoyancy in my breathing. So the T, thoughts, this is where we can check in with our mental space. And I'll just say, you know, if you've come from a busy day where you've had to navigate a lot of managing schedules, there can be a part of our brains that are still in the day, or still, you know, what happened at 10 a.m. or what needs to happen tomorrow. So this is just a way to check in with the mental body of what your mind's doing and where it's at. And I think it's really important to say here that none of this is about fixing or changing. It's really just about noticing what is currently happening within ourselves. So, and the R is resource. And this can be, resource can be something inside of ourselves, as well as possibly in our external environment. So a resource for me oftentimes is my breath. So I'm going to take one right now, and maybe you want to as well. Also, a resource for me, what is behind my screen, I live right by a creek, and so I can see the creek moving by and the sun on the trees, because the sun's getting ready to set where I'm at. So it feels like nature is a really good resource for me to stay connected. But this can be anything from a cup of tea, if you're sitting with someone on the couch holding someone's hand, a pet. So this resource is really a way to connect with yourself or something in your environment to help bring it on home. So as I was feeling into what I just want to offer here today, one of the reasons why I felt like just us checking in with our nervous system is so important, because I've been learning a lot about when we are in high stress experiences for a long period of time, it really wreaks havoc on the body. And we get cut off from our capacity to read reality rationally, to empathize or feel compassionate for ourselves or each other. So I just want to offer you this model of the brain that Dan Siegel, he is a professor of psychiatry at UCLA, and he uses the hand to represent the brain. So if the thumb is curled in, this would be the limbic system. And so this is the part of our brain that is literally just on board to help us survive. And this is where we get activated in fight, flight, freeze. And there's a fourth one, it's called fawn. And so if a tiger is running after us, this is the part of our brain that decides, am I gonna fight the tiger? Am I gonna run away from the tiger? Am I gonna freeze and blend into the environment? And fawn is cringe and compliment. And so that is a newer one that has just become more of an awareness in the psychosomatic field. And oftentimes you will see fawn in abusive relationships, where basically what happens is you try to befriend the threat to stay alive. So the threat in this case can be a virus, can be our lives changing so drastically that we get into this survival part of our brain. So when I curl the fingers over, this is the prefrontal cortex. And this part of our brain, and just to model to you, it looks like this. So this front part would be the front part of the forehead. And so the prefrontal cortex is really the part where it regulates our nervous system in the way that the simple form is, are we accelerating or are we coming on the brake here? And it also has to do with our ability to attune to and listen to other people. So when we're in this part of our brain, we don't have access to that. So in some ways, I mean, if you think about it, if someone's having a heart attack and there's a possibility that they're going to die, and you ask them a question of, how is your neighbor doing? They don't have the ability to respond. And so when we as a collective are in long periods of high stress, our compassion for others goes down. Our ability to make clear choices drastically goes down. And so it just felt really important to me to just offer to you what I know about the nervous system and what happens in our biochemistry, and the importance of the ability to self-regulate. And one of the things that I personally, Erin so eloquently spoke about values, and one of the things that I deeply value is to move in life in a way where I'm not causing damage to myself or another person. And when we spend long periods of time in fight, flight, freeze, we wind up causing damage to ourselves and other people. So for me, the invitation to get to know yourself, and that would be the pause and the connect with yourself, to actually see where you're at. And when we can regulate and come back in, and by the way, we're all going to flip our lids. Like that is part of being human, you know. So when we go like this, it's knowing yourself well enough of what brings you back to here. And sometimes it's going for a walk, going out into nature. Co-regulating is connecting with another person, calling a friend, spending quiet time with someone. Maybe there isn't even necessarily any talking. So the ability to self-regulate and co-regulate is such a gift for all of us at this time. So, and I just want to say that the power and the maturity that it calls us forth into, to hold the both and. I mean, I don't know about you, but I've definitely been noticing a lot of fluctuations in my own nervous system. I'm watching other people. And so to find my own center, as well as have compassion and be in connection with other people as they're doing the same, it requires a certain level of maturity. And I imagine we are all getting worked in those ways, and especially parents that, you know, you have young ones at home that probably a lot of you are homeschooling. So the pivot portion. So I've had more time these past many weeks, and I've been thinking a lot about seasons. And personally, where I live is in central Pennsylvania, and I would imagine a lot of you, this is also where you live. But if you don't, one of the things that has been really dynamic here is the weather. And I don't know, a few days ago, I woke up and it was snowing, and then it was sunny, and then it was raining, and then sunny, and then it became really windy. So I was laughing because it felt like almost the seasons that we're all experiencing right now in ourselves and globally. So follow me on this one. Let's take a little walk together. it seems to me that this is a really unique and momentous time that our whole globe got a pause, a slowdown. And when I was thinking about the essence of seasons, for me, spring, it feels like that initiating new ideas, planting seeds, feels very innovative. Summer is a lot about abundance and go and activity and light and harvest. And fall is letting go and slowing down, coming more inward, decomposition. And winter is a still point, dark, death. And so it was, as I was kind of being with this, I was realizing that there's so many seasons happening right now. Globally, I feel like we just got invited into a deep pause of fall and winter. Because no matter how we slice this, life as we know it is not going, it's not going to be the same. So there is definitely a letting go and a death that is occurring. So it's interesting though, because simultaneously there is still, there's a lot of people that have jobs that are still in kind of spring and summer mode. I mean, our healthcare workers that are on the front line, talk about activity and abundance and go and initiating and you know, pressing forward. I mean, it's really pioneers and trucking companies, grocery stores, food banks, also parenting. You know, your job doesn't stop. So just feeling into that place where I want to say the I, we, all. So all, the global movement that's happened here is we have been asked to slow down, in some cases completely stop. And I just want to touch into some grief cycles if they are presenting for any of us. I know for me, the longer we moved into quarantine, it really was this awareness of like, it landed a little bit deeper in me of like, wow, life as we know it is, it has died in a lot of ways. And just like the death of a loved one or a pet, there are stages of grief that we all go through, as well as, you know, there's many beautiful things that are happening on the planet. You know, pollution's down. Erin so beautifully said, I mean, the ways that people are connecting with each other. I've actually felt deeper connection with the people I love from this. And I will say that whenever we get to come out and actually physically be in closer proximity to each other, I don't know that I'll ever take a hug for granted again. And so I get curious of, have we been quarantined to deeply long for each other again? So in my curiosity, one of the things that I'm really passionate about is seasons and cycles. And one of the ways that I navigate that is through astrology. And so partly I was thinking about that back in, you know, eons ago when we were really connected to tribe mentality. And what I mean by that is in a lot of indigenous cultures, you weren't actually allowed to have anything that was yours. It was everything belonged to the tribe. Or even in family systems, it was really tribe mentality. This is what our family does, or this is what our religious beliefs, this is what we do, or this, the individual was kind of taken out of it, and everything went to tribe mentality. So I was thinking about this, and it feels like as we've aged and grown in humanity, we've kind of swung to the opposite end of the spectrum of individuality. And in some ways that has been a very beautiful thing of claiming our sovereignty. But in some respects, I've wondered if we've gone too far of being self-absorbed, narcissistic. It's only about the I, and we have forgotten. So I'm curious to see if one of the things that we're getting invited into is that we get to have our sovereignty. We get to be an individual as well as play team. And I don't know about you, but I have seen so many people in the areas that they are unique and very gifted. I mean, like financial advisors, you know, helping people, giving free advice of how to navigate this time financially, restaurants, giving food, you know, being very selfless in the respect of offering to the communities. I mean, so much, I want to say win-win-win situations have, I've just been really seeing has been coming out of this. So I'm wondering if we are collectively healing from thinking that we are not all connected, because if there's one thing that is very certain is that this, the virus it touches everyone. It has affected all of us. And so in any ways, if we've had the illusion that we are separate, we are being offered the information that we're not, and we are deeply connected. So I know that this is a forum and it is via Dickinson. And so I know that there's a lot of college students that may be connecting right now. And I just wanted to honor you in the respect of that graduation is not going to be happening in the way that it was originally intended. And I believe that's a really important rite of passage. And rites of passages show us, you know, who we were beforehand. You know, you have the rite of passage of graduation, and you move through that, and then who you are after. So I was thinking about what are some ways that we can honor you in where you've been for the past 4 years or many years. Maybe the areas that you were very much a beginner, and now you feel like you grew your bones, and all of the effort, and in some way to acknowledge this rite of passage. And so I don't have any answers, but it does make me curious of ways that maybe you could ask yourself if there's some ways that you can honor yourself of where you've been, how you've shown up, the commitment that it takes to complete, and also friends, family, people that you know, how can we participate in honoring you? So that's just, I'm wondering maybe in the Q&A if there's anything that we can get curious together and co-create a way. Because I will say this, a couple stories. I knew a person that they've retired while we've been in quarantine, and this is someone that has been in this certain job for 30 years or so, and so you know the saying goodbye, the completion aspect doesn't necessarily get to happen in the way that you know one would think that it would, and that does have an impact. And so I think in so many ways we're doing our best to to navigate these times and how to step into the new in what is the next right move. And I feel like with pivot energy, there is a certain level of agility that's required. And even with the seasons, you know, of noticing in this whole unfolding, what is your personal movement? What season are you in? Because I'll just pull back the curtain of transparency. For me, when this all started, you know, I was looking on social media and there was a lot of invitations to clean out closets and do self-improvement and almost a lot of activity, and all those things are wonderful. And if that was your movement, great. For me personally, what I got to connect with was I needed to be still. I needed to be quiet. I was only connecting with a small group of people and spending a lot of time in nature. So in that place of pivot, I do believe that what is such a gift is that while the world is changing and we're going through many seasons, to get curious, what season are you in right now? And sometimes in the morning, it can feel a little bit like fall and you're a little inward. And then by 10 a.m., you're in spring and then in winter. But that we honor ourselves and each other, of that there isn't a right way to move through this. The word that really works for me is alignment. And so alignment and the good life is where we are supporting ourselves, creating a safe haven for ourselves and each other, as well as a launching pad of moving into the new. So let me just take a pause and see if there's anything else here. Wow, that was 30 minutes. I would actually really like to read a poem that touched me. And it's a place that I've personally been coming back to. And so I just invite you, if you want to close your eyes and just allow this to wash over you. It's called The Peace of Wild Things. When despair for the world grows in me, and I wake in the night at the least sound, in fear of what my life and my children's lives may be, I go and lie down where the wood drake rests, in his beauty on the water, and the great heron feeds. I come into the peace of wild things who do not tax their lives with forethought of grief. I come into the presence of still water, and I feel above me the day-blind stars, waiting with their light. For a time, I rest in the grace of the world, and I am free. Wendell Berry. Before we jump into questions and answers, which kind of makes me laugh a little bit because these are such uncharted waters. So it seems like the next right move is the right aligned answer. But I want to say thank you. One, just thank you for showing up on here. I know there's plenty of places to be on social media, linking in with content, TV, and you chose to be here, and I thank you for that. And I also want to thank you with whatever is unfolding in your personal life. Like if you're a parent right now, thank you. I do not have children, and I've just been feeling into that place of what that must be like to, one, be parenting yourself through this, as well as little ones, and possibly doing homeschooling. So thank you. If you've been someone that has been volunteering a lot and serving, thank you. Healthcare workers, thank you, thank you, thank you. Maybe we've never been in a time, oh, that one gets my heart. Maybe we've never been in a time where in this way, showing up to work is life-threatening. And there's a lot of people that are doing that for us. And it just touches me. The power of the human spirit and playing team is like, blows me away. If you've been taking this time to rest, renew, thank you for taking the time to take a pause and reboot. If you've been staying on the pulse point of all of the emotional range and laughing and seeing the good, as well as maybe crying your own tears or crying uncried tears, thank you. That's important. Thanks for showing up every day and continuing to move forward. So thank you, thank you, thank you. That's all I have in this moment. So Lynn.
Thank you for sharing your knowledge and your experiences today, Dana. Now we'll start the question and answer session, and I would just like to remind the audience watching this on YouTube that if you have any questions for Dana, please type them into the live chat section of the video, and I will be directing your questions to her. So we have a few questions coming in, and the first one of the audience asked if you could share your notes about the techniques that you talked about in the introduction with the letters and what each letter mean, so they can practice doing that on their own time.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Awesome. So we will be contacting you and hopefully publish that on the Clarke Forum website to update our audience with that. And for the next question,
I just want to, I can absolutely offer that. And I can also offer a link to Jason Gaddis's work, which is the originator of that.
That would be great. Thank you.
Okay.
Our next question is, how has your profession been affected by COVID-19? And are you doing virtual sessions, and how are they going if you are doing them?
So part of how I've been showing up for 22 years is as a massage therapist, and obviously with social distancing, that has created a deep pause in that way. I do life coaching and astrology, and actually have been doing a few sessions with some clients that have been having pain or discomfort, and so doing some stretches and strengthening. So that's been a way that I've been moving forward. And I've also been volunteering some time at a food bank. So in some ways, how I've served in work has shifted a little bit.
Thank you. One of our audience commented that one of the consequences of this pandemic is that we're talking a lot more about death. All the deaths caused by COVID-19 is very terrible and also represents partially a failure of our public health system. And they asked, would you agree that one positive thing about death is that it reminds us just how magnificent it is to be alive?
Oh, amen. I don't know who wrote that, but yes. Wholeheartedly. I actually don't believe that death and life are separate. And wow, that's exquisite. So I'll offer something. I was watching this documentary of a guy named Jeremy Jones, and he's like this epic snowboarder. And in one of the scenes, he is a snowboarder that hikes to where he's going to snowboard. And so I guess oftentimes with adventure sports, they are airlifted in through helicopters, but he hikes there. And so there's this shot. He's on top of this mountain, and it is stunningly beautiful. And then he starts to snowboard, which pretty much looked like a free fall, that he was basically somewhat touching the mountain, but falling. And I had this thought of, to be able to experience that much aliveness, you have to risk that much death. And so, yes, I do believe that as people are affected and are dying, and also are elderly, and how much we get to value our elders. I really think that that is something that's also been at least close and near and dear to my heart. So yes, life and death, we don't get one without the other.
Thank you. One of the next questions is, you mentioned the cycles of grief previously. Do you think society is in the stage of denial right now? And how can we help our communities navigate the incoming steps?
Wow, these are great. Okay, so last week, I started to notice in myself, and then kind of watching, in life. I'm a big believer of what's in the world's also in me. We're connected. So yes, I feel like we collectively kind of bottom into deeper levels of grief. This is really happening. Things are really changing. We're not going back. And then I noticed a bit of pop-up of like, when do we get back to normal? When do things, when can we come out again? Which is all, that's not from a judging place, great. But I do think it is the squirminess that possibly some of us feel, wanting to deny what happens when we're in the throes of death, and really real deal being with grief. There's a quote by Glennon Doyle that I really, really love. And she said, "Grief is your sales receipt for loving well." So, people, places, things, the way things were that we deeply loved, they're not the same. And there's a mourning that's happening.
Thank you. One of our audience said that wanted to say thank you for such a wonderful presentation, and they asked if you have any thoughts on how we should start to prepare for when things gradually open up again.
So honestly, for me, this is where I want to say, and even everything I said here today, your greatest indicator of truth is inside yourself. So I'm a big advocate of the middle way. I think it is absolutely necessary that we are mindful about our personal hygiene, our mental hygiene, our emotional hygiene, and how we move back into life gets to be mindful. And I don't think anyone has an answer of a step-by-step. So I think it's a personal knowing as well as paying attention to our environment. That's the best I got.
Sort of adding on to that, someone else asked, in what ways would you recommend people to feel more productive and less down mentally during such uncertain times? And what do you do when you feel as though you're in the winter season for long periods?
Yeah. So I have a pretty serious hermit in me. So there's a part of me that loves the season of winter, and I can go deep into what I want to say self-regulating, paying attention to what's happening in here. I do feel that, so for me personally, it's noticing the fine line when I've spent too much time in winter, and now I need to kind of come out and start connecting. And oftentimes that looks like, you know, connecting with someone that I love, having a phone conversation, going outside. I'm a runner. I love to run. But this is where the self-regulating tool, the nester tool in the beginning, if you start utilizing self-awareness tools, you'll start to understand what brings you back to center. And I think we're all worth reading our own owner's manual.
So also to add on to self-alignment, one of our audience is wondering, what is some advice you can give to those who may be in the beginning stages of self-alignment?
Be kind to yourself. I think it's like anything, learning something new. You know, if you want to start being still in the morning, maybe start with a minute or two, and start slow. And I think the body is really one of our wisest indicators of if we're in alignment with ourselves or if we've fallen out. There's a book, it's called The Body Keeps the Score. I'm not remembering the author's name right now, but it's really fantastic. I will say it's a little dry, but what it does give is that our bodies really do register when we're in alignment or not. So I'd say start slow, be gentle.
Thank you. The next question is, as a massage therapist, could you share some massage techniques that people can use at home in order to relieve stress?
Oh goodness. Gosh, well, one, I mean, really just like grabbing your own shoulders. I've been doing definitely a lot of that, of just, you know, doing a little bit of work on myself. I also really love getting into a corner of a wall, and I'll hook my wing, my scapula, and I'll work on myself that way. It kind of feels like a bear scratching up against a tree. Yeah, I mean, I feel like in this day and age, there's so much content about self-care and massage. You know, yeah, that's the best in this moment. I mean, stretching is a great way of passive massage. And really the areas, I will say this, one of the things I do notice, the psychosomatic connection. So our mental space and our emotional space. One of the things is grounding techniques. So oftentimes if I'm feeling a little stressed or popped up, I'll actually just squeeze, I'm doing it right now, I'll squeeze on my quads, just to kind of bring myself back into my body a little bit, standing outside. That isn't necessarily massage, but.
That's great, thank you.
You're
Before I ask you one more question, I just want to share that one of our audience members said that they really want to thank you for these beautiful and potent offerings and that you're a gift to our community. And to go with the last question, I think, unless anyone has any more questions in the live section, one of our audience wondering, what are some suggestions that you have for ways to show gratitude?
Oh, that's a good one. That's a beautiful question. I know for me, it's been the simple things that I've been feeling really grateful for. I've personally been sharing with what I call the front row of my life, the people that are really close to me. I've been sharing with them how important they are to me, how grateful I am, and I've been feeling a deeper sense of gratitude. And also, if you're on social media, people are just really, I've noticed people are really offering their gifts of who they are. So sharing impact, I think, is a great way to share gratitude of that powerfully impacted me, or thank you for showing up. And also, I will just say I had a really beautiful moment of gratitude. I was coming out of the woods, and there was a family coming towards me, and there was a little boy. He looked like he was maybe 3, and really curly hair, and he actually started running towards me and, like, had his arms out, and it was just like joyful and laughing. And his parents were like, whoa, come on back. But I just had this beautiful moment of gratitude for the innocence of joy. And so that one. I've been holding that one in my heart for a couple weeks now.
And before we end, one of the last question is, how did your interest with astrology start, and how did it evolve?
So I've been really interested in astrology for a long time. I would say when I was a teenager, I'm 41 now. So when I was a teenager, I got interested, and I want to say, in fast food astrology, which would be like, reading your sun sign in the newspaper. And then in my mid to late 20s, I really started to deepen in my passion for it. And oh my goodness, I could talk on this for a very long time, but from 27 to 30, there is a rite of passage. It's called your Saturn return. And basically, Saturn wants to give you back your internal authority. And so it's oftentimes and if you have already gone through this rite of passage, it's a great thing to look back. It's where you take inventory of your life of, do you want to stay in the marriage that you're in? Do you want to stay in the job that you're in? Are you living in your true north? And so for me, when I went through that rite of passage and just the tools that I was reading, it was a way to help me understand the seasons and cycles that I was in personally. So it would literally be like someone saying that spring normally happens from March 20th to June 20th. Now, I don't believe in predictive astrology. No one can tell you what happens in that time frame, but they can offer you an awareness of what happens in the season of spring. And we all go through cycles and seasons in our life. So.
That's great. Thank you so much. That last question concludes tonight's event. I just want to thank you again for sharing so many meaningful concepts and advices. And thank you to our viewers for tuning into tonight's event.
Yeah. Thank you so much. This was, I'm sharing gratitude. I'm deeply grateful that I was invited on here. And this is one of my favorite things, to get curious and navigate life. And especially at these times, we need each other. So thank you. And thank you for all of the behind the scenes work of some of the other organizers. All right. Take care.